Okay, good morning, everybody. We're going to get started. We've got a little bit of a challenge this morning. Welcome, everybody. Oh, wow, everybody's asleep this morning. The rain has got us all napped. So, welcome, everybody. All right. Welcome to the Humanist Society of Greater Phoenix. My name is Alex Zygmunt, the president of the organization. Again, it's raining here in Phoenix, so we're navigating a few challenges, not the least of which some new technology on our streaming system and a window well that is filling up with water and close to filling up our basement with a nice little flood. So we're navigating things as we go. Just want to say, what? We're live streaming right now. Kind of important. Okay. We got a window open now. So we got a window well that's filling up with water and a car that's now filling up with water. So yay. Well, by the way, we do this every other week, so this is not our first time, even though it might seem like it. So anyway, just want to say welcome to you all. Thank you so much for attending this morning. I'm very much looking forward to today's talk. Who here enjoyed breakfast? Yes? Yes, all right. Thank you so much to our breakfast crew. I saw them early this morning, 6:30, getting started and getting set up. So we do greatly appreciate that. This organization is an all volunteer-led organization. Nobody here gets paid. We all do this because we love what we do. We love the community that we're building. And we also do a lot of stuff for the community, in the community, those types of things. So if there's an event that you would like to see, let us know, and we'll go from there. We're glad to set it up. In fact, we've got a few new things that have been popping up in our community center. Just recently, we did our quarterly blood drive, and I think we actually exceeded our goal for blood donations, so that was a good thing. We also have ongoing things like, as you can see on our beautiful new presentation here, we have Let's Geography that happens once a month. We have the Philosophy and Influence whenever we have those events going. But upcoming here pretty soon, next weekend? Yes, next weekend. HSGP will be attending the Pride Festival. So we would love to have some of our members show up, help table there, and greet the people, let them know what humanism is, that we are in favor, we are supporters of, we are advocates for the LGBTQ plus community. It's very important because, especially in today's times, a lot of communities are under attack, and humanist values are shared across so many different spectrums, and we'd love to have everybody join us, try to make the world a better place, one little act of kindness at a time. After that, in 2 weeks' time, we will be having our annual Flying Spaghetti Monster Party. It's a blast. We dress up as pirates or whatever costume that is age appropriate, and then we have a good time. We have spaghetti meatballs. We have all kinds of different foods and games and prizes, and it's just a blast. So if you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you here. It is the 25th, which is a Saturday evening. Tickets are now on sale. Okay, so one of the really cool things, though, that has just recently started up is the Navigators USA chapter. This is a chapter that's essentially like Secular Scouts. It's a pretty interesting program for kids. I think it's middle school and high school kids. Is that correct? And we just teach them life skills, leadership skills, all kinds of really interesting stuff that's going on with that. We also have our ongoing Inquiring Minds, Cthulhu's Chosen Gamers. Up here pretty soon, we've got something coming up called Meeple Fest. It's an all-weekend long board game convention, and this entire building fills up with maybe 100 or so people. It's a lot. It's a lot of fun. So, like I said, if you'd like to have an event happen here at the community center, please reach out to us and if there's something you want to lead, there's plenty of opportunity to do that. Upcoming here pretty soon on the 15th, this Wednesday, we have an event called Words Matter. It's hosted by Patricia Uwanski, and that's a free interactive workshop on nonviolent communication. So check out Meetup. If there's something you'd like to attend, please sign up there, and we'll get you going. Normally we would have a Humanist Minute. Unfortunately, oh yes, we do have a Humanist Minute. So, Mike.
Thank you, Alex. One of the wonderful things about humanism is that you can define morality without religion. You can define what's good, what's bad by what it benefits humans. What are human rights? And clearly right now we're seeing violations of human rights by ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And we have a chance to speak out against this violation of human rights this coming Saturday for the No Kings March, 11 o'clock, downtown. See you there.
Yes, thank you so much. It's very important that we do these types of things. And it's going to be at the state capitol. Okay, so, all right, everybody's messaging me at once. My goodness. Oh, okay. Plenty of stuff going on. After this speaker meeting, we do have a board meeting. So if you'd like to stick around, see kind of how the sausage is made, contribute to some of the ideas that we have coming up for the 2026 year, and contribute your own voice, we welcome you to join our board meeting. As of today, we are now opening nominations for the 2026 board. So I'm going to be asking the board today, are you going to stick around? If not, please find a replacement, because I can't do it all on my own. And I have a wonderful board now. They have done a lot of work. We have done a lot of work around the community center to try to upgrade some things, update some things. So if you would like to sit on a board position, all of our board positions can be co-chaired. We are, I think, are going to be appointing today, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, an assistant for our property director. But if you would like to run for board position, please let us know. Please come to talk to myself and Mike, and then we'll get you set up for the nominations form. Okay, now I am done talking about that part. For those of you who are in the room, please go ahead and silence your phone if you haven't already done so. And we also ask that we reduce the amount of talking during the presentation. If you have a question, I believe we'll be taking questions at the end. And actually, let me do this real quick. Hang on just 1 second. Okay, so fantastic. So today we have the fortunate pleasure of having a wonderful speaker who has spoken to us before, Sandy Bahr. Sandy Bahr is the director for the Grand Canyon, Arizona chapter of the Sierra Club, where her responsibilities include advocating for environmental protection, equity, and democracy, including climate action and justice with various state and federal agencies, conducting research, developing and evaluating policies, conducting grassroots outreach and organizing, developing and implementing priority projects, fundraising and budget development, and supervising staff, among others. Sandy's originally from Michigan and has made the Sonoran Desert her home for 38 years, worked actively on her on environmental protection issues in Arizona for most of that time, both as a volunteer and as staff for various organizations. Sandy monitors and advocates on environmental protection, clean energy, and climate justice at the Arizona Legislature, the Arizona Corporation Commission, and various state and federal agencies. She's received a number of awards for her work, including the 2016 Scrapping Bear Award from the Arizona chapter of the Wildlife Society for her advocacy work relative to wildlife. The Arizona Interfaith Power and Light 2017 SAGE, which stands for Spirited Activists Greening the Earth Award. The Arizona Capital Times 2018 recognition for Best Activist. Yes, that's exactly it. And the 2019 Best Environmentalist recognition from Phoenix New Times. And the 2023 recognition from Chispa, Arizona. Sandy has an associate's in applied science in civil engineering, a bachelor's in environmental studies, and a master's in legal studies. Please give a warm welcome to Sandy Bahr.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I'm not used to using the little microphone, so that's good. All right. Hopefully I got it in the right place. All right. Well, thanks for having me here today, and for everyone who braved the rain. I know it was coming down pretty hard, and while we love it and welcome it, I know driving sometimes can be a little dicey. So thanks so much for being here. Despite the title of my talk, Digging a Deeper Hole, I am going to provide some positive news as well as opportunities. So I don't want you to think that I'm going to be this morning's Debbie Downer, but maybe just a little bit. Okay. So let's go ahead. You already gave me a great introduction. I'm going to skip over that. I always like to start with letting folks know that in Sierra Club, we do center our work on principles of equity, justice, and inclusion, and have adopted the HEMAS principles for democratic organizing as kind of our operating principles, both here in our chapter and on the national level. And a big part of that is being inclusive and working together in solidarity. Today, I'm going to cover what's up with the Arizona legislature. Of course, they're not in session right now, but there's still stuff happening. What happened in the 2025 session, our report card on them, so you can know about how they did, and then a little bit of a preview of 2026, that should say, I don't know. And then I want to touch on the Corporation Commission a little bit because they are very important from a public policy perspective, and a little bit on the governor and the attorney general, and then, of course, what you can do. So this is just a quick snapshot of the 57th legislature, first regular session. That was this past session. Started back in January, didn't end until the end of June. We, as we have been doing with every session for the last, I think, 5, announced our priorities at the beginning, along with about 50 other organizations that were part of that. The governor had her State of the State, talked about water, education, housing, reproductive rights. They did the budget, which was meh. And there were so many bills that one of the things that we've seen change a lot at the Arizona legislature is that they just keep introducing, bills. It's like they don't have self-control at all. It's just, oh, I gotta have another bill. Oh, someone said something to me, I'm gonna introduce a bill on that. Anyway, and there were a lot of vetoes. The governor has been very effective in using her veto authority, although I would say maybe not quite enough this session. And the bills that were passed and signed by the governor just became law a little over a week ago on September 26th, and so they are now on the books. Some of the things that we dealt with this session were a lot of bad climate and energy bills. the legislature seemed to be on a mission to block wind and solar and to try to prop up coal and gas. Yeah, a little bit backward, but following the lead of the Trump administration on these issues. And so luckily, you know, the governor was very good at vetoing a number of these bills. Some of them were stopped in the legislature, but there were a couple of bills that would have required any generation to be replaced with fossil fuels, gas or coal. There were provisions, again, to deter people from installing renewables, especially relative to siting and you know, just any way that they could think to block clean energy. And then, unfortunately, the governor did sign a couple of bills for the utilities. All of the utilities were pushing those bills, but I would point to APS as being leader of the pack. The House Bill 2679 could have been a bill that benefited ratepayers, but instead it really gave a blank check to the utilities, and it allowed them to divest from things like old coal plants without retiring them. And in other states, when a bill like this passed, it's called securitization, they've required that the facility be retired. So like right next door to us, New Mexico has a securitization bill, but they required that the coal plants be retired before a utility could benefit from this. And it basically allows them to bond, and that reduces the cost. And it can benefit both the utility and ratepayers, but in this case, it really benefits the utility. There were a number of harmful water bills that were introduced again this session, and most of those were either stopped in the legislature or vetoed. I posted some of the ones that were vetoed by the governor at a time when we know that we are taking shortages on the Colorado River because the Colorado River was always over allocated, and climate change is reducing the flows at a time when we know that we're continuing to mine groundwater, even in the places where we have active management areas, like in the Phoenix area. There's a goal to reach safe yield by the end of 2025, and safe yield means that you're not pumping more than is being recharged. We are nowhere near safe yield. And then at a time when we have virtually unmitigated groundwater pumping in most of Arizona, all those areas outside of the active management areas, this legislature decided it was a time to poke more holes in the Groundwater Management Act, to make it more difficult to limit groundwater pumping when new active management areas were established, and just generally lower the bar even further when it comes to groundwater pumping. So luckily, the governor vetoed the bills. Most of these bills were sent up by Gail Griffin, who is the chair of the House Natural Resources, Energy, and Water Committee. And what you don't see on this slide are all the good bills that were introduced on water. And the reason is because they never got a hearing. She is the gatekeeper for good water legislation, and likewise her counterpart in the Senate, Senator T.J. Shope, did not hear any of the positive water bills as well. So, and this has been the story for a number of years, so it's one of the reasons it's so disturbing. It's not new that we need to address water issues. It's not new that we really need to be more aggressive in limiting groundwater pumping. But yet, year after year, as the land subsides, in many areas, as we see more earth fissures open up, as, people get these massive cracks in their houses and their wells run dry, we still have a legislature unwilling to take action. And yeah, I talked a little bit about this already, but there was a rural water bill, but it was god-awful, and it was, that had a strike everything amendment on it from Senator Tim Dunn. It really was basically leaving groundwater pumping unregulated in most of Arizona, and very limited provisions. The governor did not support it, and it didn't even advance in the House because they knew she would veto it. So, and then the rural water bill, where there was a lot of consensus, was something the governor supported, was introduced by Representative Chris Mathis and Senator Priya Sundaresan, was supported, had bipartisan support at the local level. County supervisors from Mojave County, La Paz County, the mayor of Prescott, some agricultural interests like Ed Curry from Curry Farms supported it. That never got a hearing. So again, we went nowhere on rural water. And then there was a bill the governor signed on physical availability of water. You've probably heard that in places like Buckeye that they weren't able to build new subdivisions in certain areas because it was determined that there wasn't a 100-year assured water supply. And that was because they didn't meet the physical availability requirements of an assured water supply. So if you are going to say you have an assured water supply, there are several. It has to be legally available, physically available, and you have to have the economic means to make that water available. They didn't meet the physical availability requirements. Ever since that has happened, there's been a huge effort to get around the assured water supply requirements. There's a rule, alternative designation of assured water supply that was done through the Department of Water Resources. We didn't like it, but even that the developers are challenging legally. And then this bill basically promotes conversion of agricultural land to development. And you can argue, of course, that that helps to save water because agriculture does use a lot of water. In fact, uses most of the water in Arizona, about 72%. But one of the issues with this bill is it relies on a mechanism for replenishment of groundwater pumping that isn't real. The Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District was established based on there being excess Colorado River water. How many people think there's any excess Colorado River water? So yeah, it's a fiction, and we have started calling it a house of cards, and it's just not sustainable. The original bill was actually written by developers for developers, and it served them pretty well over the years, and continues to with exemptions like this. I will say this bill is, Senate Bill 1611 wasn't as bad as the bill they started out with, but less bad is still bad. They passed a number of bad transportation measures. There's a real blowback at the Arizona legislature toward electrification of transportation, toward doing anything to reduce vehicle miles traveled, doing anything to accommodate bicycles and pedestrians. It's like, okay, we have to have the internal combustion engine, and it's anything goes. Let's just build wider and wider roads. And so we have successfully been able to stop those primarily because the governor vetoed, although some of them were stopped because people don't, well, one of the senators promoting the bills was not well liked. Let's put it that way, I won't name him. But they did refer a measure to the ballot that it's a proposed constitutional amendment that you'll actually see when you get your ballot next year, and it prohibits limits on vehicle miles traveled, any travel reduction program. We think it's contrary to air quality requirements. So check that out. And, I won't tell you how to vote right now. Sierra Club will, I'm sure, be taking a position on it. As we've seen over the years, ever since the wrong people lost elections, democracy and voting rights have been under attack, especially things like early voting, voting centers, any way that makes it more convenient for people to vote, and that actually results in more people going to the polls. I forgot to update this one thing so House Bill 2017 was vetoed. HCR 2002 did die as well. They did try and get that through towards the end. Likewise with HCR 2013. At the end of the session, because they waited and because there were a number of people from the majority that were gone, there were a few bills that died just because they didn't have enough people there. I think we'll see them back. And so especially HCR 2013, which mandates new voter ID, requiring us to verify our address every election, and requiring early ballots be deposited at specific times by 7 p.m. the Friday before the election. I think we're going to likely see that on the ballot, because, again, they didn't have the votes just because some people weren't there, but we'll see. Anyway, lots of ways that they have been attacking democracy. I think I didn't add these, but they also have gone after ballot initiatives and referring measures to make that more difficult. There was a bill this session to require a proportionate number of signatures from every county. Last year, it was every legislative district, but people didn't support that. Hopefully, they won't support that either. And then there were also some harmful lands and wildlife bills. I think probably the federal government is doing a number on this, so maybe we saw a few fewer, but luckily all of these bills died in the legislature. Senator Mark Fincham, this was his first session back, and he really doesn't think we should have federal public lands. He thinks there's too much, that the state should control them all, and thinks that they should have to approve any transfer of land to the federal government. That bill died. They wanted livestock interests to have more influence on what happens with wildlife. They wanted to prohibit limits on hounding, and they wanted to privatize wildlife by giving tags to landowners. Luckily, all of those bills died. So how'd the legislature do overall? Well, a majority of legislators failed on our report card, which we have been doing at the end of every legislative session since about 1995. So we have a long history of grading legislators. A couple of legislators were top of the class, and they get an A+ if they voted 100% with us on the bills we graded on, plus they didn't miss a vote. So that's the A+. We give credit for attendance. So, and there's been a little controversy on that because some legislators scored lower due to absences. There were people who, and some of them really had legitimate reasons for that. So, and then the governor's grade was lower, primarily due to those, the utility bills. In addition to the one I talked about, she signed that one that gives the utilities a little bit of liability relief for wildfires that are sparked by their infrastructure. So we thought it went too far. And she also did sign that water bill I talked about earlier regarding physical availability. So those brought her grade down a bit. So you, oh yeah, the A+ were Kuby and Epstein. So, and you can find this on, yeah, sorry, that's probably not quite big enough, but you can see the whole report card, descriptions of the bills and the grades, plus our narrative. We have a narrative on it on our website. So check it out. Let legislators know that you saw it. So if you run into Senator Kuby, say, hey, keep it up, great job. And if you see someone on there that maybe didn't do as well, you can ask them why. So let's do a quick preview for 2026. I got the number right here. So this session will start on January 12th. The session always starts the second Monday in January. So the legislature has a lot of discretion on when they end and in changing the rules and suspending the rules. But there are certain things they can't change, and those are the things that are in the Arizona Constitution, and when they start is one of those. So they'll be starting on January 12th. When it ends, we don't know. They say they are, every year now we hear we're going to limit it or try to limit it to 100 days. I cannot remember the last time it was limited to 100 days. They've been regularly going into late June, late May. It's been quite a long time ago that they adjourned in April. The 100-day mark is usually right around Earth Day, and which is April 22nd. And so when they do adjourn around Earth Day, I always think it's a great gift to the Earth. But they start the session with a State of the State address from the governor, and she outlines her priorities in that address. I think in every one of hers, she has talked about water. And then the budget is going to be a big deal. It's a kind of a dire outlook as far as the budget goes. We have limited dollars. The reasons for that are the tax cuts that the state legislature has done. The federal cuts in programs are really affecting us and will affect us, especially relative to health care, but also in the environmental realm. We get federal funding for like our air quality programs and such, and those dollars are getting reduced. Plus, who knows if the federal government will be back open by then. And then the vouchers, the ESAs, have also really cut into the dollars. So, yeah, if you've been wanting a luxury item, all you have to do, I guess, is apply for an ESA, and it's fine. Anyway, it really bugs me because that, it doesn't just affect the schools. Of course, it affects our public schools and is very harmful for them, but it affects the budget overall. And so, when people think, well, I don't have kids in school or whatever, don't think that it's not affecting you as well. We expect anti-democracy, anti-voting rights measures again. This is an election year coming up in 2026. So I think we'll see a lot of the bills we saw last session, and then probably some new ones. And they will not be shy about sending bills up to the governor to veto, because also the governor is going to be on the ballot in 2026 as well. Water, including the Colorado River, will be on the ballot or on the agenda. And unless someone has a real change of heart, I am not expecting them to do anything particularly helpful. More anti-solar and wind. I put utility accountability on here because I know Senator Kuby is working on a couple of bills that might hold the utilities a little bit more accountable. And then there are a number of legislators that have talked about data centers and trying to have some limits or requirements relative to data centers, or at a minimum, get rid of those tax breaks that they get. Because why? These are, multi-billion-dollar entities. Do we really need to be giving them tax breaks? I don't think so. All right, let me talk a little bit about the governor, what she's been doing recently. She did have a recent executive order on energy. It establishes a task force that is supposed to look at a number of things relative to siting of renewables, especially on state trust lands, and looking at other opportunities. She said there was going to be guidance for state agencies to reduce their energy use, which I think they can do. That was done under former Governor Napolitano. She made them turn the thermostats down or up in the summer, and so you didn't freeze every time you went into a state building, and that saved a lot of money. It's a very simple thing that you can do, and for goodness sakes, we can take off jackets and such, so why not? She has been involved in water rules and is looking at another active management area. And for everyone's benefit, active management areas are areas that are allowed under the Groundwater Management Act, and within those areas, you have limits on groundwater pumping. What those limits are depend a lot on what the actual goal of the active management area is. There is a meeting on October 15th, this Wednesday, in La Paz County, and it is also available virtually, so you can comment and support the active management area. I can provide you with information on that. But this is an important step. The legislature is doing nothing, so already the Department of Water Resources, obviously with the support of the governor, has established the Wilcox Active Management Area, and actually has a very strong goal in place for that. And Wilcox has huge water issues. And then La Paz County does as well. La Paz County is where Fondamonte drilled their wells for that massive alfalfa farm. So La Paz definitely needs help. So if you have a chance, and you can send written comments too if you're not comfortable talking about it. They're asking for written comments by October 20th. She makes appointments to boards and commissions. I always mention this to people because there are a lot of boards and commissions that it's really hard to fill the positions because people don't apply, don't put their hat in the ring for. And so I urge you to check out the website for that and see if there's a board or commission you might qualify for or be interested in, and and check it out. I know right now they're looking at the Game and Fish Commission, although the deadline to apply has already passed. But it will come up again next year. She's been pushing back on the defunding of Solar for All. That's one of the federal programs through the Inflation Reduction Act that was enacted in the Biden administration. And of course, we know that the current administration has been trying to defund everything, take back money that was already committed, which usually doesn't happen, but this administration is not concerned about that. And she also has the Efficiency Arizona program. They have a website, Efficiency Arizona, and it tells people how to apply for programs. You can put your information in and see if you qualify for certain energy efficiency benefits like heat pumps and other more efficient appliances that can save you money, also make you more comfortable. And I just wanted to give a plug for that because it's, I think, a really great program. And then Attorney General's been doing a lot. She's been resisting the Trump agenda every step of the way, has filed 26 lawsuits so far. A lot of those lawsuits are related to federal funding for programs, the firing of federal employees, Trump executive order on elections. The federal government right now is trying to take more control of elections, which have generally been within the purview of the states. She has written comments, she and her staff have written comments opposing things like elimination of roadless area protections on our national forests. And I mention that because it's like, that's the kind of thing that doesn't get very much attention, but it is so important to push back on it. And the fact that our Attorney General is doing that, I think is says a lot about her. She's intervened in the Arizona Public Service rate case before the Corporation Commission, which is really important, and is having an electricity town hall way over on the west side this week, or next week on the 21st. So if you are interested in that, I guess there are a couple people who live on the west side you might want to go, but it's an opportunity to support her in her efforts in this rate case. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that rate case in a minute. And then, as you've heard, I'm sure, she's suing over excessive groundwater pumping by Fondamonte and using the public nuisance provisions to do that, which is pretty different, but it seems like she has a good, strong case. So let me shift to the Corporation Commission. I think, does anyone not know what the commission is? It's all right if you don't, or what they do. Okay. Come on, no, I'm not about shaming, I'm about people learning, because obviously a lot of people in Arizona do not know what the Arizona Corporation Commission is or what it does. Otherwise, I think we would have a different commission. So anyway, they're elected every 4 years. 2 seats are up in 2026. Currently, they're all held by Republicans, and they have jurisdiction over the quality and the service of our rates. We're one of very few states that have a constitutional commission, so it's like a branch of government. They have other responsibilities as well beyond regulating utilities, water companies, and corporation, railroad, and pipeline safety. And of course, they set our utility rates unless you have SRP. SRP is not regulated by the Corporation Commission. They have special status in law. We can have a whole program on that. But they do also impact how much clean energy we have. So what's up at the ACC right now? The commissioners are seeking to repeal both our renewable energy standard and energy efficiency standard. And while these standards went out to 2025 for renewable energy standard and to 2020 for the efficiency standard, we don't want them repealed. We want them improved and continued. We don't want APS to stop having to implement efficiency programs. And as we've seen recently, APS had basically abandoned its carbon commitments, its renewable energy commitments. These utilities need standards. They need requirements. They're monopolies. They do have to be regulated. I mean, I guess you could make an argument in some other areas, although I wouldn't. But with these utilities, they need the Corporation Commission to do its job and to require them to do things. And instead of doing that, the commission is getting rid of requirements. And then, of course, there are two utilities. There are actually, I think, 14 rate cases total before the commission right now. But there are two utilities that are seeking 14% rate increases. APS is one of them. TEP, Tucson Electric Power, is the other. So what can we do? This is where we're going to get to the positive news. There was a little bit of positive in there, I think. But so I'll start with the commission. You can speak at the Corporation Commission meetings. They're public meetings. You can listen in by phone. You can, they have a live stream where you can just watch if you don't want to speak. You can call in for the various comment periods. There's usually a special phone-in number for those, and that information is on the commission's website. But you definitely, they give you like 3 minutes most of the time, and so it goes by fast, and even if you're like not totally comfortable with it, I think most of us can endure 3 minutes of, discomfort. And then here are some upcoming opportunities to comment. So I mentioned the renewable energy standard, efficiency standard. The renewable energy standard public comment sessions are coming up in November. The one in person in Phoenix is on the 13th. They're also, all of these are available telephonically. The one on the 12th is only telephonic. And the public comment on these repeals is facilitated by an administrative law judge. Usually the commissioners may or may not be on. And then the rate cases will kind of gear up in January and February and go out through April, and there are a number of opportunities for public comment on those. Again, you can call in, you can show up for some of them, and you can send written comments as well. I left that slide out. I had a written comment slide. But anyway, there's a way to submit written comments, and I can share that with you. And then for the legislature, you can become a volunteer lobbyist. This isn't something that requires a lot of training or background. You just have to be passionate about whatever you're talking about, know something about it, or be willing to learn about it, and a willingness to speak up in whatever way you're most comfortable. That can be meeting with your own legislators, contacting your own legislators, showing up at the legislature to speak in committee, or just signing in on the request to speak system, signing up for it and registering your support or opposition for a bill. I can show you how to do that. I also will give a little plug for civic engagement beyond voting. They have a whole program for the request to speak system and can get people in that. But one thing you do need to know about it is, even though it's called request to speak, you don't have to speak. You can say whether or not you want to, so no one's going to force you to speak if you sign up for it. And once you set up your account, it has to be activated at the Capitol. Unfortunately, they try to make it a little more difficult. If you do set up an account and you want it activated, you can contact me. I'm happy to do that. And then again, civic engagement beyond voting does that as well. But it is a great way. So when legislators go in and look at a bill, they'll see your name, and it's really nice. For a while, when this was first established, Sierra Club would be on there. There would be, there might be a couple of other names on there. And so it's so nice to have, that long list of names. It helps the people who support our issues. So if you're opposing a bill that promotes coal and gas, then the people on the committee that support or oppose the bill can point to that and say, hey, look, we have 200 people who have signed in against it. You can sign up for our legislative alerts. You don't have to be a Sierra Club member to get them. Of course, we'd love to have you as a member, but you don't have to be one. And those go out weekly during the legislative session, and with a few glitches that we're trying to work out. Some people, for some reason, are not getting them, so I'm working on that. But you should get them weekly, and then when they're not in session, we send them out periodically, once or twice a month, with various information. I sent one out on Friday. I included information on this, and then a couple of other things, including our Environmental Day. And they usually tell you how to take action via email. Sometimes there's a click and send a message action. They tell you what to sign into on request to speak. I feel like maybe I've gone overboard with that and had a little too many bills listed, so I'm trying to figure out. There's so much bad legislation, and I am not, exaggerating at all on that. So it's hard to decide, whether or not to list it. It tells you how to watch or come and speak at committee hearings. So we give you the list for the week of what committees are meeting, what bills they'll be hearing, in case you want to come down. There we go. And sometimes other actions as well. You can help with tracking legislation. The legislature's website, has all the bills posted. We have a bill tracker that will change to the 2026 session soon. Bills will start to be pre-filed on November 15th, so we'll have that changed by then. And if you see something on the bill tracker, which does allow you to sort by bill number, by issue, that needs to be updated, that you noticed, you can help us with that. And then participating in Environmental Day at the Capitol. That is our annual lobby day that we do in coalition with a bunch of other organizations. This year it's going to be on February, or next year, the 2026. It's going to, oh, look, and I put 2025 below there. It is 2026. Being in 2025 and looking out to 2026 is keeping those numbers straight is challenging, I guess. Anyway, February 11th, 2026, and it starts at 8:30 with registration, and then we have a program that goes for a couple hours, but during that time and beyond, the main thing that we're doing is having people meet with their legislators in teams. So we have team leaders, they set up the appointments, they arrange to get together ahead of time, and then we usually have, 3 or 4 bills that people talk to them about. So if you can come, it's a great day, and we do We do provide lunch now. We didn't used to do that, but it seemed like it was necessary. So I hope you'll join us and speak up, whether it's at the Corporation Commission, the legislature, with the governor's office, attorney general, and obviously in your local communities as well. You know, share what you know. One of the biggest ways we can make a difference is talking to the people we know and making sure they're aware of things. Because I think we make assumptions, you know, we know something, and then, you know, I find frequently that people, again, are unaware of what the Corporation Commission does or some of the things that the legislature does. So join us, speak up, and I will take your questions.
So for those of you who are online, please go ask your questions there, and I will start here in the room.
Sandy, thanks again.
Sure.
Always a pleasure to see your presentations. I've got what I think is an important question, but it's going to take me a minute to give a little context for it. Right before you started, Alex mentioned a meeting coming up, I think, in a couple of weeks to try to get together, find some common ground with the other side, so on and so forth. Frankly, I think that is pointless. And up until a few years ago, I used to go to Republican and libertarian stuff just to find out how crazy and mean and bitter those people are. I don't do that too much anymore. Both Bernie Sanders and Howard Dean years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, were saying something to the effect of, if you think you're going to accomplish something by trying to make nice with the people on the other side, you are fooling yourself, absolutely fooling yourself. When I used to go to a bunch of Republican and libertarian stuff, they never, ever said anything about trying to get along with the other side and, oh, isn't it a shame that we're so divided? We ought to be more unified. Never would you hear that from the other side. Frankly, I believe that half of the hardcore MAGA Republicans, which is most of the Republican Party today, half of them, if they could get away with slitting our throats while we sleep, they would do it. And I'm sick and tired. I'm getting to my question. I got an important question. I need to lay a little groundwork. I'm sick and tired of hearing.
No, you're done. So HSGP is a nonpartisan organization, and we are humanists here. We try to have common ground with people, and we don't attack people. So if you have a question relevant, please. So, yes, we have a question up at the front.
I'm just going to say one little thing, and that is that, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and I have seen things change, and not for the better. But I still am willing to talk to everyone. And that doesn't mean that you say you're right and I'm wrong. It doesn't mean that you will come to a compromise. But I think the best sometimes we can do is better understand people. And that's all I'll say about that. Yeah.
Sandy, thank you for a really interesting presentation. I have lots of questions, but one of them is about mining. Because do I understand correctly that mines are allowed to extract as much water as they need? There are no restrictions on how much water the mines may take out. And is that true even for the mines that are near or on the water management areas? Like, for example, the new copper mine being planned, the Resolution copper mine here. Is that part of the water management area that we live in?
Yeah, the mines were at the table when the Groundwater Management Act was passed, and they are not limited on how much groundwater they pump out. And most mines that go deep pump out a lot of groundwater, right? Because what happens is it gets flooded, and so they have to pump that water out. They do have to get other permits, you know, like if they're discharging into, you know, a water, they have to get a pollutant discharge elimination system permit, and then aquifer protection permits. But you're right, they're not regulated, and that is a problem. And they are huge, you know, water users throughout. I mean, both in that pumping part, but in the processing a lot of times as well. Resolution copper, of course, probably there's the water quantity issue, but also quality, and the fact that they're going to have this massive tailings dam that, you know, there's a lot of concern about the potential contamination downstream from that, because tailings from mines contain, as you might guess, a lot of metals. And so there's definitely concern, but you're right, they're not subject to the Groundwater Management Act. It was, you know, as part of the compromise they had to make. Just like the Groundwater Management Act doesn't do anything to protect rivers, streams, and springs from groundwater pumping. It didn't, you know, it didn't include any provisions for that. Yeah.
Thanks for your great talk. My name is Aaron, Vice President here. And for many years, well, for quite some years, I worked for Greenpeace, so really love what you guys do. But I wonder about, I'm curious to take your response on this as to what are some of the responses that you hear at this legislative level, right? I know what I've heard years ago, but I'm curious to know, like, you know, when you're saying, let's try to, you know, talk to the other side and put these things forward and say, this is the issues we're facing and so forth. Do you get responses from the other side at all? And if so, like, what are they, if they are? Is there gaslighting? Is it just ignore it, it's not a problem? Or just like total mistakenness or, you know, misinformation? Or what kind of things do you hear from the other side?
Oh, there's a long list, but you know, it depends on the issue, of course, but and the individuals. From some individuals we disagree with, they are unwilling to have a conversation. I have a policy that every new legislator, irrespective of their party affiliation, I try to set up a meeting with them to introduce myself and the Sierra Club and what our priorities are. And some will just not meet. I usually try 3 times, 3 strikes, you're out. Okay, maybe I'll talk to you in a hallway sometime. And then, but there are those who will meet once in a while. Again, I'm gonna, I think, stay away from naming names, but there is a senator who is part of the Freedom Caucus, and who I really don't have anything in common with, and I do not support their rhetoric, which I feel is hate-based rhetoric. But I was walking into the Senate this year, and they wanted to talk to me, and it was about the utilities, and they are concerned that they're not, you know, about the utilities. And so, like, there's a tiny piece of common ground there on holding utilities accountable, and maybe we might even be able to, like, work on a small piece of legislation. Those are the kinds of things that I look for opportunities on. Again, it doesn't mean I agree with anything else, or they, frankly, agree with me on anything else, but maybe just that little bit. You know, sometimes I will get, look, I agree with you, but I can't do that because I will not, if I do that kind of thing, then I will be challenged in my election. And people do say that. Or, you know, I agree with you, but so-and-so is never going to hear that. You know, I can't be seen on a bill with this other person, you know, those types of things. And, you know, and then sometimes it's just, you know, they'll listen and not give very much feedback, even though you try and get feedback, and you just have a somewhat superficial, pleasant conversation. So it really does, it varies a lot. In committee, the committee chairs vary in how they operate their committees. Sometimes it gets fairly hostile, you know, like name calling and stuff. I try not, well, I don't reciprocate on that, you know. I try to answer the question. I'm going to end this with my favorite moment from this past legislative session. One of the legislators was attacking us, the Sierra Club, saying we don't care about wildlife because we support renewable energy. And asked me about that. And I'm like, I am so glad you asked that question. And it gave me an opportunity to talk about climate change and how wildlife, you know, we have an extinction crisis with wildlife because we have a climate crisis. And that's how much we care about wildlife and why we support having energy production that isn't putting more CO2 or methane into the air. And so sometimes they accidentally give you an opportunity, but there wasn't really anything they could say to that, you know, other than, I guess, they don't believe in climate change. But, you know, so, you know, sometimes there are those, and, you know, you hope that maybe somebody will, you know, take a look at, you know, the science or see what is happening, whether it's, you know, the increased and intense wildfires, even more of the flooding that we're seeing. But, you know, the loss of our precious Sonoran Desert vegetation, you know, will we have saguaros into the future with these high nighttime temperatures? Anyway, they gave me that opening. And so some people ask why we continue to testify in committee. And I'm like, you know, you have to be on the record, one. But also, I have over the years found that there were a couple of people who later, you know, came back and said, you know, maybe we can work on this. Like there was a toxics bill a former legislator was interested in. It has gotten a lot harder. I know the frustration, but I just feel like we have to continue to model the kind of thing that we want to see in people.
So we have a couple more questions. I'm going to ask one real quick, and then we'll go to our final question here. Recently, there's been developments in technology that permits further refinement of things like tailings that are typically just discarded and eventually become Superfund sites, but allows miners essentially or mining companies to additionally extract some of the metals, things like, the titanium, all the different elements that are required for things like batteries and exactly. So, would Sierra Club have an idea about that, or at least a position on continuing to develop that type of technology, so long as it was obviously people are going to try to make money off of that, but so long as they were trying to clean up the environment without necessarily just leaving it there to further mess with our environment.
Yeah, we wouldn't object to something like that. I mean, obviously, if a mine is going forward. The tailings are basically, sometimes a Superfund site, sometimes, they just have to be managed for a long time. And, just like with everything, though, I think the devil's in the details. We hear a lot of things that sound too good to be true, and sometimes they really are. So we would want to evaluate it, and we would want to hold them to high standards regarding, what happens when they're mining those tailings and stuff like that. But if the tailings are already there, I mean, we've even said, like with copper, the percentage of copper in a lot of landfills is higher than it is in the ore that they want to mine. So why not mine the landfills? But anyway, that's a whole other discussion. But I think, there's something to it. You've already, this massive amount of waste, and that's what tailings are. Why not utilize it? At the same time, we are advocating for, development of battery technology that uses, less or no lithium, for example, things like that. Because unfortunately, a lot of times the mines target those that are least able to resist, whether it's here in this country or in other countries. And we definitely don't want to just ship our problems offshore.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sandy, for a great presentation, as always. Huh? Okay. Recently, last week, I think it was, I got a notice from SRP about rate increases on my starting with November bill, higher for solar customers than for, I think it's 3.5% and 5% for solar. I mean, atrocious. So I commented on their comments, I mean, this was just a notice, not a time to ask a question. But my question to you is, what's the best way to respond to rate increases with SRP, for example, which is not under the ACC?
Yeah, well, the board does approve those increases, and they don't have, like, at the Corporation Commission, when there's a rate case, it's kind of a quasi-judicial process. There's an administrative law judge that oversees it, and the company presents a case, and if you intervene, you're allowed to cross-examine, whoever testifies. Usually the company CEO, like Ted Geisler, would testify. We can cross-examine him. You can do discovery, all those things. SRP has, they do what's called a pricing proceeding, and none of those things apply. There's no, opportunity for discovery. There's no cross-examination. There's no opportunity for us to present, usually. Sometimes they have, a public meeting where they'll allow it, and they did do that this time. But so it's a lot different. One thing I will tell you, and this is because of Sierra Club, so I'm going to take credit for this very positive thing, is SRP is subject to the public records law. You can do a public records request and ask them about what went into it, and they have to respond to it. They have asserted for the last, 20 years or more that they were not. We filed a lawsuit. The Court of Appeals said you are subject to the public records law, and the Supreme Court refused to overturn it, so yay. So, and one of the reasons we did not settle on that lawsuit was because we wanted everyone to be able to access public records, not just Sierra Club. So that's one thing. Participating in the pricing proceedings is really important. And that one is passed, obviously, but look for when the next one, because they don't get very many people. They don't make it easy. They don't take public comment virtually for their pricing proceeding. You have to show up in person. That's the way they did it this year anyway. We had to beg them to do an evening comment session, but then they gave like 48 hours notice for when it was going to be, so there was no opportunity to get the word out. But anyway, pay attention to the pricing proceeding. Now that it's in place, I would write them, let them know, because when someone else does a public records request, they're going to see your letter. Two, I would do things like letters to the editor and say, guess what I got in the mail? I bet a bunch of other people did too. You know, SRP is saying it's supporting solar, but here they are punishing me, blah, 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 whatever, you know, that kind of thing. Get the word out a little bit on it. Yeah, you know, and while you're at it, tell them you're disappointed that they're not retiring those Coronado coal units and instead are converting them to gas, or they're going to participate in bringing in this new gas pipeline that'll probably mean they're burning gas for the next 25 years, which we can, you know, we just can't afford that. And that is going to mean higher prices, especially the way gas prices are expected to go up, methane gas prices. So anyway, those are just a few things. And then this is nonpartisan because the races aren't partisan, but it's informational. There is an election for the SRP board that will be coming up next year. Pay attention to what they say. Pay attention to what people say, and I'd ask them about it.
Okay, I don't see any other questions online, no hands raised in the room, but I do have a lot of fantastic thank yous from the online community saying thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. I'm sure everybody in the room here also agrees. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I thank the folks online, too, for hanging in there.
And is there any other follow-up, any other podcasts that you recommend, any other websites that you recommend as well?
Well, check out our website, sierraclub.org/Arizona. The legislative information is on there. You can sign up for the legislative updates there, or you can contact me as well. If you ever, you know, if you're a little bit uncertain, you want to go to the legislature, I'm always open to having people go with me, even if you just like want to sit there and observe. I promise I won't go, okay, get up. No, I just love to see more people down there. Check out our calendar for our calendar of events as well. And yeah, just thank you all for everything that you do, for sharing your morning with me. I appreciate it. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you again. We really appreciate it. Okay, that is it for our end of the presentation. Just want to say thank you to everybody who attended and was participating today. Greatly appreciate it. And remember to live humanism every single day. Thank you, everybody.